Welcome to Grief Uprooted, a podcast dedicated to sharing your grief stories. Together, we embark on the mystery of one's grief journey as they learn to live, heal, and be courageous in a world rooted in trauma. Join myself, Christine, in an open discussion to help you uproot the grief in all our lives. I am an award-winning author, professional speaker, and humanitarian in the field of grief and trauma. I want you to be part of the discussion. Welcome back to Grief Uprooted. December is here. So today's episode will be on the holidays and resiliency. Two words you would never put together, but we're going to today. Before we dive in, I just want to let you know that the services and information I'm providing on this podcast and within my resources and books and all that stuff I do is for educational purposes, and it is not to be used for diagnosis purposes or intended to substitute any professional or clinical care. This is to help us heal and grow. So thank you for tuning in. I am very excited actually to tackle this topic. The holiday seasons are hard. We all can relate to that. But it's even harder when we've experienced a form of grief or trauma. Let's just close our eyes for a second. And I want you just to take yourself for one moment to the mall. I want you to close your eyes and start walking around the mall. You're going to hear the rustle of bags. You're going to hear the music. You're going to hear people talking. You must probably hear the loudspeakers talking and saying things. You hear the pitter-patter of feet. You maybe smell coffee or gingerbread spice as Starbucks is bringing out their new beverages for the season. But what creeps in? I can tell you what creeps in for me. Memories of the past. I can see the people that I used to do that with. My mother-in-law. My friends. And all these people were in my life at one point. But as I grew and they grew, and as my mother-in-law had passed and died, my life changed. And that's where that magical word comes in of resiliency. How do you bounce back? How do you really walk through that mall feeling that joy and happiness that you once felt? So before we actually get into that, I think there's some things I need to explain to you. And one thing is called a grief loop. There is only one thing in this world that humans cannot control the reaction to. I'd love for you to take a guess. I'd love for you to just kind of throw out some words wherever you are, the gym, your car, wherever you are. What is one thing in the world that humans cannot hide their emotion on? And I'm going to tell you, I was watching Nature of Things, and I was so excited about this episode. And when I watched it and they said this, I could so relate, not only for myself, but for the work that I've done in my career. So it's a topic that I absolutely love, grief. Humans cannot control their reactions to when being given or delivered a death notification. I've had, I guess I would say, the honor and unfortunate honor of delivering this to individuals. And when delivering the news that your loved one has died, the physical body really starts to react. It will collapse. The knees will buckle. And there's often a shock that comes into play. But what happens is that this body cannot contain its reaction to the mind and the emotion and what it's receiving. So a lot of times people are constantly trying to go, how do I be resilient? How do I push back? How do I? And this takes time. There is a part of the prefrontal cortex in our brain, which is actually located right in the front, that is where your consciousness lives and your processing and your reasoning occurs and the meaning of language. So when grief occurs and people enter into the fight, flight, or freeze state, and I'm sure you're all familiar with that. There's some people who are going to fight, and then there's some people who just go frozen. You may see this at work. There's other people that are running out the door. All responses are really normal, healthy responses and individually based, but they result in a communication shutdown and comprehension is affected. This is often when I've worked in schools with young children and ran hugs programs. These children are in special classes educationally. I too was in that class for I had a comprehension problem. But imagine being a child and experiencing trauma or the death of a loved one or grief in some form. And the mind going, wait a minute, I don't understand what's happening. And it trying to process this. And then the child sitting there with the fight, flight, or freeze and not knowing how to communicate themselves. And in my day, we never communicated about this stuff. Comprehension is affected. They then start to look at the world different and how they're comprehending things starts to change. So this is why we have communication promoters practiced in a variety of ways, which is self-talk, the podcast you're listening, reaffirmation, self-reflection, self-love. They all help in comprehending one's journey. They all help in looking at your story and going, okay, at what point did possibly I fall into a grief loop? And grief loops are to protect you. Often self-denial, emotional denial, these are things people experience. And on our last podcast, I shared about our jar. That was my grief loop. So how do we move on? How do we look at this in the month of December? Because that is our focus. And as you can tell, I can get on this topic and go for hours. Well, we really need to first step into, are you going to put up the Christmas tree? Are you going to attend the parties? And sometimes that first step is to create something for yourself in order to let others know you're grieving. Often I use bereavement bands and I have people create them at our camps and they will wear them to acknowledge their grieving. This is seen in our culture over and over again. But sometimes in the holidays, while our friends and family are pushing us to go, hey, celebrate Christmas. Hey, have a great party. Put up a tree. Oh, come on. Bah, humbug. Don't be that person. Your heart is just crushed inside. You're having such a hard time finding that joy and excitement that others have. So the very first thing you need to do is slow yourself down and have compassion. And know it is okay not to want to celebrate the holidays. No, it is okay to be different. But what is not okay is to sit there within yourself and not reach out, not connect with other people. It's okay to be grieving, and it's okay to tell people you're grieving. Often in my career, when I enter into a party or a family get-together over the holidays, people avoid my career. No one asks, how's your career going? Because they're frightened that I may turn around and start talking about grief. I might talk about the trauma that I have witnessed or went out to aid on. And I understand that because it's a time that people want to feel grateful. They want to feel that joy. But some years I don't. Some years I have witnessed the horrors of the world, and I'm very grateful for what I have, but I'm still carrying that. And that is okay. And besides having self compassion, which was number one, number two is what are you going to say to your loved ones? What are you going to say when they say, put up the Christmas tree? And you go, I don't want to put up the Christmas tree. What you need to say is something that comes natural to you. And this is what comes natural to me. I'm grieving right now, and my soul hurts. So for me, watching you celebrate and watching you bring joy into my life, it hurts because I wish I was at that place with you. But what it also does is shows me how much you love and care for me. And I am so grateful for that. And just give me time. My tree will go back up one day, and it will be filled with ornaments of all the people who have created the woman you're looking at today. That might be a little heavy for your friends. But you know what? It works for me. And I think that's what you need to do. You need to be able to express your grief. You need to say, it's okay. You see it on Facebook all the time. People are posting things, please be patient with me. Please be kind. I'm grieving. And that outwardly expression of our grief is what the world needs to see, not only for yourself, but for others. And the last thing I would love to see you do is buy a gift for that individual you're grieving. Buy something that you will use, that will touch your heart, that you walk by and think of them all the time. Every year I go out and I buy a Christmas ornament for, usually I pick somebody quite close that I've recently lost. So I will pick something that reminds me of them, that I can place on my tree, that I can walk by and know they're here. Another idea to do, which I do enjoy this, is called a grief ornament. You take a variety of different ribbons and you take a clear ball. This is great for children. And I want you to fill it with many different colored ribbons that represent how you're feeling. The red could be joy or anger. Yellow could be the hope and sun and joy you hope to see one day. Green could be the envy for others that perhaps have never experienced grief or death at the level or in the realm you have. All our grief experiences are different. We're never here to compare, judge. We are just here to help each other heal. So when we think of resiliency, we think, okay, I have compassion for myself. I have a log line or saying that I will share with my friends and family, and write it out. Put it in your phone. And thirdly, I will celebrate the individual I've lost or loved. These are important steps during the holidays. Resiliency does not just come natural. It is a practiced behavior. When I started my career, I thought, how in the world will I return to that happy place, that celebration of holidays? And your ancestors are there with you. They always will be. I have the fortunate of being able to connect with spirit and my ancestors, but I also am capable of looking at the next generation. And that's what you're fighting for. That's what your resiliency is for that next generation. We need to keep our past, our story, but we need to share it with the next generation. And we need to start expressing our grief. We need to make it okay to be grieving during the holidays. That is a thing, a real thing. And it's okay not to want to celebrate. It's okay to share with others you're not planning on it in a nice, kind way. And it's okay to go out and purchase something that makes you feel good, that reminds you of your loved one that you miss so very much. We often wonder, and it's a very common question I'm given, is why do we grieve? Why does it hurt so very much? And especially during the holidays, why do we grieve? Why does it hurt so very much? Because you loved. Because you loved someone. And you loved this person beyond boundaries. You loved them with all your heart, your soul, your physical being. And now think of what you're asking your mind, body, and spirit to do. You're asking it to jump into a holiday season and feel joy and happiness. Once you've really looked at what do you need this holiday season or Christmas, we really need to start looking at what we're celebrating. When we look at the holidays, we're looking at them from that perspective of that child. We wake up, there's presents. We go to parties and we dress up. But what if we were to look at the holidays differently? What if celebrating not only what we're grateful for that we have here on earth, but what we had and what we still have, but in a different form? What if we were celebrating oneself? What if we were celebrating somebody's life? See, resiliency shifts and changes. Resiliency is about really growing and changing. There's one thing in life that will always continuously happen, and that is change. And with that change, you have a choice. We have a choice to be resilient and mold with it. So yes, Christmas has a traditional feel to it. But as the world changes, perhaps your view of how you celebrate Christmas, holidays, whatever it may be, should change too. Let's not just celebrate those in front of us physically. Let's celebrate all of our lives. Let's celebrate our past, our present, our future. Let's celebrate our loved ones who've moved on, died, in a way that brings your spirit, soul, your being comfort, in whatever way that is, as long as it's healthy. And I'm going to leave you on this note. I know it's hard to be nice during the holidays. It really is. It super is. People are standing in front of you singing Christmas carols, ringing bells in your face, and you literally just want to bleep, 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 bleep them. And I get it and I understand it. So be compassionate for yourself. Think of yourself. Have that line that you can say to people at where you're at in your grief and the holidays, and celebrate yourself with a gift or your loved ones that have died and moved on. Don't ignore your grief. Embrace it. But also try to be kind to those who have not or have in the past experienced the grief that you've experienced. It's a tough one. It really is. But as time goes on, you will become resilient. And that resiliency comes from the love of those we have lost and from those who are to come and those that are presently staring at you. We're definitely going to tackle this together. So, love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your questions about the holidays. Throw them at me. Let's tackle them. If you have some suggestions, or if you're like, heck, I need to do some activities with the kids to bring forth some of our loved ones that have died, either in Christmas decorations or just some ideas, reach out. I've got a ton of them. I'd love to share them. Until next time, do stay tuned. We're going to uproot our grief together, and we're going to plant some amazing flowers afterwards. Take care, everybody. Bye.